My story is entitled Troubled Confession. It's 4:50 p.m. finally. Just 10 more minutes left to go and I can enjoy the rest of my Friday. This was a great internship, very insightful, but I'll probably think again about my future career as a scriptwriter for a crime-fighting video game. I thought local police fought interesting crime, but working here for the past 3 months has taught me that TV shows are riddled with made-up excitement. I'm not saying these cops here are boring, maybe just a little, but the criminals hold some blame in this too. They could be a bit more creative, I'm just saying. Janie's fun though. She's the only one that kept these 3 months bearable. We usually grab drinks on Friday, but I've got plans tonight. Yes, 60 seconds and counting. So Ivy, you excited for tonight? Which number is this? Fourth? Sixth date? You lucky girl, you're gonna tell me all about it on Monday, right? Janie asked as we walked to the orange glare gleaming through the glass doors. She's a nice lady, cool chick, but too nosy for my taste. I think she knows I don't give her all the details, but whatever. This is a business relationship, and we both know that there's a chance that we won't ever talk to each other again once this internship is over. As we made our way closer into the glare, a strange figure burst through the doors. It was a woman, 5 feet 6 inches, wearing a dirty cream-colored jeans and an oversized olive jacket with torn holes held together by safety pins on the left sleeve. As she got closer, we were able to observe her face a little due to the eclipse she created. "Is there an officer on duty here?" she asked in a calm voice. As I leaned in closer to hear her clearly, I tried to examine her face in its entirety. She looked completely composed, except her eyes. They were quivering with large, deep valleys running from the corners to her temples. She looked distraught. "Of course, miss. What can I help you with?" said Janie in her professional voice, quickly shifting from nosy Janie to Tensberg PD receptionist Jane Inzy. "I would like to report a murder." "A murder? You witnessed a murder, miss?" Janie asked, moving closer with a confused look on her face, like she was sure she misheard this increasingly intriguing woman's statement. All of a sudden, the lady fell to her knees, closing her eyes. With tears streaming down her cheeks, she raised her hands above her head as if they were bound, yelling, "Yes, I'm the murderer. I killed her. You have to take me away." We all just stood there staring at her, as if she just walked in the foyer and popped a squat. We were all in a state of shock at how fast the situation went from 0 to 100 in a matter of seconds. It's unbelievable. I'm tight. She just came in and shitted all over my Friday night. Who the hell is this woman? Hearing all of the noise in the foyer, Detective Dennett scurried over from the printer room in the back. Dropping sheets of paper with every few steps he took, he finally got to us, setting the rest down on Janie's desk. I'm always impressed how quickly he moved for a round dude. Shadowing him and watching him for the past 3 months were very entertaining. "Ivy, what's going on? Did this woman say murder?" I don't know why he always asked me first when there was always someone more qualified, trained even, to answer his question. "Yeah, Detective Dan, but she said she's the murderer." He immediately bent down to her level, saying, "Excuse me, miss? Miss, my name is Detective Dan. Are you hurt? Can you move?" Reaching out his hands in a way one would try to comfort a child. "I would like to speak with you privately. Is that okay? You can tell me all about what's upsetting you," he said, grabbing her by the arms, helping her off her knees. Detective Dan is a badass. I mean, the amount of things that could go wrong in that moment, respect. He escorted her to the interrogation room C4, which was the fanciest interrogation room at the department, equipped with HD cameras, high-res audio, and a hot and cold water dispenser. "Ivy, I need you to fetch my interrogation kit from my desk. Also, get me some mints out of the cabinet. Thank you." This request confirmed my Friday night was going to be spent here. Just wonderful. When I got back to the room, I noticed the woman was completely calm again, like the episode in the foyer didn't even happen. Come in, Ivy. Close the door. Sit there and let's begin. From my position, I was able to observe any slight change in her demeanor, and I was ready to document it. Please, state your name and address for the camera and tell us why you are here, requested Detective Dan, turning the desk camera in her direction. My name is Louetta. I live on 67 Creed Clove Lane. I'm here because I murdered her, she said, emotionless and detached, staring at her twiddling fingers under the desk. Can you tell us what happened? Inquired Detective Dan in a careful tone. Was it an act of self-defense? Did she hurt you first? He continued, trying not to set her off again. She slowly raised her head and placed her hands on the desk as if she didn't want to, but had no control over her own body. She just looked at Detective Dan in a bleak stare, almost as if she was focused on one particular strand of hair on his face. She kept me locked away in her basement for years. She was happy to be with me, but she started to change, you see. She continued like this was something normal that happened. All of a sudden, she started shouting, slamming her hands on the desk. I told her she couldn't leave me. She always wanted to leave, so I hit her. She shaved my head, and I told her no one ever could love her. We fought all the time, so she tied me up and put me in her closet, so that I would be near her always, ending with a faint smile on her face. Her name is Manoa. She lives in that house too. That's where we stay. What the hell was she talking about? What happened? At that moment, I looked in Detective Dan's direction only to see him staring right back at me. I know he was thinking the same thing too. Where is Manoa now? Still in the house? Yes, Detective, are you not listening to me? She said, lashing out at him. Suddenly, she started sobbing, saying, in the chest, in the back of the closet, in the upstairs room. I put her there because I... Detective Dan and I stepped out of the room to compare notes. I really didn't want to go to that house, but he insisted. I watched her like a hawk in that back seat all the way there. If she scratched too long inside that jacket, it was on. As we pulled up to the house, it looked normal, well kept even. I was sure we were at the wrong house until we got inside. It was dimly lit, though all the lights were on. A little misty in the air, almost wet, but the smell, oh gosh, the smell. Like 5 wet dogs were left unattended in here, started a fire, and put it out by shaking the water off their fur. As more backup started to arrive outside, Detective Dan, Officer Mike, and I followed Louetta upstairs. I felt that she should be in cuffs, but it was still unclear whether she was a victim or not. When we all got into the room, she didn't say a word. She just pointed at the door in the corner of the room. Stay here, Mike. Keep an eye on her, will you? Said Detective Dan as he and I stood at the closet door with our flashlights. The closet seemed so vast once we got inside because the lights were unable to illuminate the back wall. I wanted out of this closet. Look, Detective Dan, I really don't want to do this. Can't Mike be your wingman? I'm just an intern, please. No, I'm leaving. I'll be down, I started to say before I tripped over something large on the floor. The chest, said Detective Dan, shining his light at me on the floor. With his radio in hand, he said, Coroner, we need you up, suddenly stopping due to a large shuffle coming from the room. No, miss, you can't stop. Please, give it back. When we got into the room, there she was, pointing Mike's gun at him. This was bad. What the hell was she doing? Okay, Miss Louetta, we want to help you, but you have to put down the gun, pleaded Detective Dan, moving slowly towards her. Suddenly, she cocked it. The room door was crowded with cops that heard the commotion from downstairs. Holy shit, what am I looking at right now? They all had their guns pointed at her, yelling, "Put down the gun!" All I could do was stare at her, and for the first time today, she was looking right back at me. She started sobbing again and said, I burnt them all. She wanted to leave, so I erased her. She discharged the gun and the bullet hit the back wall, but before anyone could notice she was aiming at no one, it was the 4th of July. She fell like a boulder buckling under the weight of gravity to the floor. Coroner, we need you over here, too. There's a body in this chest, said Detective Dan, directing her to the closet door. There's no body here, sir. Just partially burnt stuff. Looks like pictures and papers, explained the coroner, now moving her gear towards Louetta on the floor. What? No body? Said Detective Dan, looking at me shocked. I started to go through the chest and began to notice a familiar face. It was Louetta. She's in these pictures. As I dug deeper, I pulled out letters, journals, a passport, and a birth certificate. I handed the birth certificate to Detective Dan while I looked for the main information page of the passport. This is Manoa's birth certificate, said Detective Dan in a perplexed voice. Why is this here? Is this what she meant by murder? Ivy, do you hear me? This birth certificate belongs to Manoa. I did hear him, but my mouth became numb from what I discovered in the chest. It took all the strength in my body to stand up and hand him the passport page. What the fuck is going on here? He yelled, handing the paper back to me. What have we done? He whispered, walking out of the room door with his hands resting on his head. It was her. Louetta is Manoa. Manoa was Louetta.